When I started work, when I finally got a job after 40 rejections, when I finally got a job and I met people and they were 21 and I was 26 now, I realized that I actually had the greatest advantage, which was I had massive self-awareness. I knew what my strengths were. I knew what my weaknesses were. I knew what I had to offer and I knew what I wanted to do. I just took the biggest risk, potentially one of the biggest career risks in life by becoming a monk. I shouldn't be scared of anything anymore.
Yeah.
Like that was the scariest decision that I made at a time when things were more vulnerable. I shouldn't be scared of anything. And so I became fearless. That fearlessness led to me making big, scary decisions in a big, scary organization, which paid off because I now wasn't ready to follow what everyone else was being told to do. And everyone else who was 21, who was still following the rules from college and university, they, well, no, I'm not going to follow that rule because I think I'll do a better job this way. And thankfully that paid off. Now, I had people in the company, senior people, some of them were my biggest champions, who I love and I'm so grateful to. And some of them were massively intimidated, even though they probably made 20x what I made at the time. But they were intimidated and they were trying to control and trying to manipulate. So it was tough living that, but I'm really grateful that I did.
Need motivation?
Watch a top 10 with Believe Nation.
Hey, it's Carmichael, and I make these videos because in my first business, I quit on my business partner. I was making $300 a month, and I didn't have the motivation to keep going. And the thing that got me through was studying the stories of entrepreneurs who've had massive success. And I hope that in sharing these stories with you, you find a motivation to keep going. And if I'm being honest, I still need the stories for myself today too. So today, let's learn from one of the best, Jay Shetty, and my take on his top 10 rules of success. Enjoy. Rule number 2, overcome envy.
What is envy? Envy actually is more of a expression of how we feel about ourselves rather than how we're perceiving someone else. It's actually so much more about how comfortable we feel with who we are, how confident we feel with who we are, how much self-esteem we have, how much self-assurance we have. Envy is more a root of that than it is of the fact that someone else is doing well. It's less about the fact that someone out there is amazing, making waves, doing something that you want to be doing. It's more about how we feel about ourselves, and it's experienced in that way of looking at someone else and reflecting back on us. Social circles, family circles, someone else has done amazingly in their exams, someone just landed a new job, someone else just got promoted, and everyone's looking at you going, what are you doing? Right, what have you achieved? Where are you today? Where have you got? Right, what's happening with you? Tell us about you. And you're thinking, you're going through all your head, you're trying to come up with all the things that you've thought about, all the things that you've achieved, all the things that you've done, and you're trying to bring it up, like constantly. But you're struggling, you find it hard because you're now measuring your growth based on someone else's. You're now measuring your success based on someone else's. And that is the biggest challenge with envy. That one of the biggest challenges it brings in our life is that it forces us to start measuring our success in comparison to someone else's. That is the biggest challenge with envy. When we start comparing the level of our success with someone else's, you're already on the wrong foot, right? There's no two of us are the same. We all have a uniqueness that we can use to enhance the world. And when we dilute that, and allow ourselves to compare us to someone else that we may not even be like, that we may not even share the same skills with, we really limit our ability to actually create success. We actually limit our ability to see how we can grow. So I always want you to remember that. I always want you to think about that. Now, the amazing thing I was looking at recently is obviously bionic limbs has become this thing of 2016 where we're able to allow people who've lost their arms, lost their legs, etc., to have these great robotic arms and legs again. Now, I've seen some stories about some phenomenal Paralympians. I've seen some phenomenal stories about human beings who without arms and legs have achieved extraordinary feats. And this blows my mind because I always think like some of us have challenges in different areas, but imagine being born without legs or arms or, like actually not having stuff that we all take for granted. But those are like, for some people, that would be an absolute dream to have that. Now through robotics and bionic limbs, they can have that. But for years, they've lived without it, but still I've seen positivity in them. I've seen drive in them. I've seen a desire in them to achieve something phenomenal. So it's amazing what's happening out there. And we really have to connect with those stories rather than living in our small bubble. And often because we only live in our small bubble, we talk to the same people. right? One of the biggest challenges with envy is that we talk to the same people and they talk to each other. So our group is so small that we only hear the same stuff, and we kind of start living as if that bubble of life is real. My dream is that if we were able to completely eliminate and obliterate envy from the world, our relationships would be revolutionized, love would be more apparent, we wouldn't have to second guess everyone, trust would be on another scale. Can you imagine? Actually, tell me what you think. Imagine what a world without envy would look like. Just write in the comment section, just imagine, what do you think would be solved if we removed envy from our hearts, from our consciousness, from our minds? Just for a second, imagine what the world would be like. One of the biggest challenges with envy, or what can really help us overcome envy, is that we talk to certain people and they talk to each other. So we create a bubble of life that we see as a reality. So mainly it's those people talking to each other, us talking to them, and that defines what we feel is success. So if you're around people who are doing well in their career, that's now your measure of success. If you're around people who are trying to do something different, that will be your measure of success. So we're actually creating bubbles of reality that are almost illusion-like, somewhat inception-like. We're almost creating a dream within a dream within a dream, and you get so lost in that definition of success that you forget a broader, higher perspective definition of success. Does that resonate? Does that make sense? That often what happens is that we're so in our closed groups, we don't open up to what's actually happening outside in the world. So I'm talking about these people with robotic arms and legs, bionic arms and legs, people who, Paralympians who are proving phenomenal things without even having limbs. Can you imagine that? It's an amazing achievement. Definitely take a look at it. And it makes us immediately feel more grateful for what we have. So the differentiation is that jealousy is more passive, envy is more active. So jealousy makes us think, oh, that person has something. Oh, that person has something. I wish I had it, right? That's jealousy. Envy is, that person has something, I want it, and I don't want them to have it. See, envy is a bit more active. You're like, I want it, I don't want them to have it, and actually I prefer it when they do worse. Jealousy is the beginning root seed of envy.
Rule number 3, create to serve.
We should redefine the word billionaire to be someone who impacts the lives of 1 billion people. Now, whether you think of that from spirituality or from a money perspective, the wealthiest people in the world are creating something that services the most amount of people, and the scale of the problem you're solving and the depth of the issue is how much money you make. So if someone created a cure for cancer and was able to scale it across the world, they would probably be the wealthiest person on the planet because they created something out of service. Now, you may say, well, Jay, well, no, many people out of wanting the money will figure that out. I'd say that they may, but I'm hoping that on that journey, they'll upgrade and their desire and their intention will be purified. And I think this was what I loved learning from the Bhagavad Gita, which was this idea of there is no pure intention. All intentions are percentages and divided. So when you first start something, you may have a 70% pure intention, but there's 30% of ego in that.
Yeah.
Or when you start, it's probably the other way around, 25% good intention and 75% of ego, but it's purified in the process. So even if you look at people who've set out their lives, and I work with many of them who set out at the beginning of their lives to become wealthy and famous, when they became wealthy and famous, they then realized that wasn't the point, and they were purified in the process of achieving their goal. And so the way I think about it is that in a capitalist society, even the people that are succeeding because of service, whether it's conscious or not conscious, whether it's intentional or unintentional, they're still only successful. Like Amazon is successful because we all want its service. Like we want to be served by Amazon, right? And I'm not promoting or de-promoting Amazon. I'm just making the point that because it serves a daily need for the majority of the population, they are financially successful because of it.
Rule number 4, always be a student.
I would say that, and I'm going to be honest because I think that's the only way to do it. I would say that my greatest skill is knowing that I can learn something if I want to. And that if I apply myself to it and I really deeply care about it, that I will find a way to get really good at it. And I don't think you can separate that from impact, because impact means, there's a beautiful quote by Bruce Lee where he said that I'm not scared of the person that has practiced 10,000 kicks one time each. I'm scared of the person who's practiced one kick 10,000 times. And that's the switch that we have to make, is that, are we willing to practice this one kick, this one move 10,000 times or whatever it may be? And that to me is the difference maker. So I would say that there's a lot of strategy, because now it all makes sense, like social media, meditation, oh, that fits. It didn't make sense when I was collecting those skills. And so as Steve Jobs says, you can only connect the dots looking backwards, you can't moving forwards. To me, when I was collecting it, I was just like, I love people and I love connecting with lots of people. So social media would be useful, maybe. That's literally all I had as a thought. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to learn this, then I'm going to learn this, and then it wasn't that thought through. And at the same time, when I became a monk, it wasn't like, oh, one day I'm going to write a book about it wasn't that. It was, hey, I think this is what my calling is. So it was a naive, innocent following of what I'm being called to do at the time, then matched with what do we do with this now that we have it as a skill, and taking a risk based on that. So I would say it's I don't know what you call that, whether it's discipline.
Yeah, it feels like the combination of like intuition and action when an opportunity presents itself.
Yeah, that's better than what I was about to say, so I'll take that. Intuition, action, I just came up with this. Intuition, action. And I would add a massive sense of being open to risk again and again. And then I would say it's brilliant mentorship and guidance. So I give all the credit to the people I met. If I didn't meet really critical people at different times, and I didn't form a relationship with them, and they didn't invest in me and I didn't invest in them, that was everything. Like for me especially. So that you could say was luck. That was the luck. The luck was that these people came into my life and we clicked at really specific times, and that was the luck.
Well, and I would say the skill there was, my intuition is that when you were building these relationships, it wasn't doing so in a way where you were getting something out of it. You were getting into these relationships because you love the people that they were, and you wanted to just be closer to them.
I'm still friends with every one of those people. Like deeply. I message them all the time, and they're still involved in my life in so many ways. And I all the credit goes to them. I'd say any career success I had, I'd give it to them, because it's not that they told me what to do or how to do it or invested money. It wasn't those kind of things. It was people who just changed the way you thought by planting simple seeds and planting simple ideas at different times in my life. So I would say there's a mix of luck, strategy, intuition, action. But ultimately, I think it comes down to three things: passion, strengths, and service. That's ultimately what it comes down to. It's the passion to learn anything and everything, developing an actual skill in the subject matter you want to do, and then wanting to serve through it, which is where the fulfillment comes from. And so to me, I'd narrow it down to those three things.
Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight all of the lessons learned in this video, as well as pull out our 3 favorite learnings and quotes that will inspire you to actually do something. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there. Rule number 5, make an impact.
Social media was my last resort to try and share a message that I deeply believed the world needed. And so if I had it my way, I would never have taken to social media. I would have done it through one of these official channels that wouldn't give me a chance. And I think people don't think that. People think, oh yeah, you joined social media because you want to get a follow. It's like, I joined social media because I didn't know any other way to spread the message. So going back to mistakes on social media or failures, I've fallen into it so many times, and I fall into it on a daily basis. If your life revolves around serving through social media, you have to become phenomenal at social media strategy. You can't separate the two. You have to. The problem is when the strategy overtakes the sincerity. The problem is when the strategy overtakes the creativity or overshadows the creativity. The problem is when the strategy just becomes a game and now you're just living in this fake world you've created. Yeah. And that's the problem. When you just look at the likes and you don't look at the comments, when you look at the views, but you don't look at the engagement. And when I say engagement, I mean the depth of it. What are people saying? How are they feeling? That's what humanizes it again for me. So that's what I'm holding on to, is the humanizing of it, of seeing like, how is this genuinely having a human impact, not a data impact? And I think that's where our mindset as strategists versus spiritualists goes, is as a strategist, you're meant to think data, but as a spiritualist, you're meant to think depth. And so you can't let data overshadow depth. And what I love about algorithms is that they always keep you humble. You will never beat the algorithm. It will always keep you humble. So if you're actually doing it for likes and love and hearts, you will give up. But if you're doing it because you just want to find what is going to connect with people, what is going to resonate, what is going to cut through, then that's something that will keep you humble in the process of it, because you'll never win.
Rule number 6, give yourself time to breathe.
What do you do when you think about your weekend and you realize actually you've got more time than you expected? How do you fill space? When you know you're traveling, you're commuting, how are you filling that space? Notice that there's actually more gaps in space in our lives than we actually believe exist. And for that reason, I'd love for you to just tell me right in the comment section, when you see space, what do you fill it with? What do you put into that gap, right? How do you make the most of it? The reason why I wanted to talk to about space was I remember a story from when I lived as a monk. And it was about a student who came up to his guru. And the student came up to the guru and said to him, he started just rambling on about his successes, what he'd been achieving, how well things were going, how much he was just progressing. But he was doing it in slight arrogance. There was a slight bit of overconfidence in the air of the way he was presenting himself. So to show him a lesson or to explain something to him, the guru, remember yesterday we talked about 2 types of people who believe in you, change spotters and cheerleaders. We need both of them in our lives. We need people who motivate us, but we also need people who remind us and make us reflect of what really matters, what's really important. So what he did is that he poured the tea. Of course it was green tea, it had to be, right? It can't be any other type of tea if there was a guru. He poured the green tea, and as he started to pour it into the cup got filled to the rim. And then he just carried on pouring it. So the cup was just overflowing. The tea was now spilling onto the table. And the student said, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? You know, you can't fill something that's already full. And the teacher said, exactly. You can't fill something that's already full. You already feel that you know everything. You already feel that you've got everything taken care of. You already feel that you're full to the rim. You can't add anything to that. And therefore space is such a underestimated, undervalued period that we all need in our day. We all need in our week, we all need in our year. Now, the amazing thing is that statistics show that so many people don't even take their holidays from work, right? There's leftover days, and these aren't days that you can carry forward. These are days just lost because we're so busy, right? It's incredible to believe that we're getting paid to take holiday, yet we don't take it. Now, how many of you have ever done that? How many of you have forgotten to take holiday or not been able to do it? Whichever one it is, it's interesting that we feel so full. When you're asked what you're doing, I know so many people, like I was asking someone the other day, I asked them, what are you doing? It's your birthday weekend, or it's your birthday, or it's your anniversary, or it's just the weekend. It's not even like a special weekend, it's just the weekend. And you ask someone, what are you doing this weekend? How many of us feel pressurized to have to say we are doing something, and how many of us feel honest and comfortable in just saying, you know what, I haven't got any plans, I'm just going to take some time out. And I find that I see both, so we see both types of people. We see some people who feel pressurized to have to say that they've got something cool going on, or they've got something interesting to go to. And at the same time, we have individuals who just be like, yeah, you know what, I'm quite comfortable. But it's that creating that comfort, I still feel that pressure or that tension in people's behavior and expression where they feel slight discomfort, slight bit of anxiety in saying, I haven't got any plans, you know, I haven't got anything to do. It almost feels that we've created a taboo around not having something to do, right? We've created a taboo about the way we feel about not having something planned, about having space. We don't necessarily say, I'm so glad I have nothing to do. Sometimes we may say that. I do it all the time. Just before you send an email, just after you sent an email, just taking that moment between activities Once you stop doing an activity, just take some time to breathe. Before you start another activity, take some time to breathe. Giving yourself space to breathe does something amazing. One of the reasons why we feel we don't have space in our lives is that our mind's moving faster than our bodies. How many of you have ever felt it? And press the like button if this is you, that your mind is just moving at an incredibly fast pace, but your body feels tired. How many of you have ever felt that way? And how many of you have felt the opposite? Your body's moving really fast, you're doing lots of things, but your mind's feeling really tired and you just feel drained and you can't think. That's because we're experiencing what happens when there's a disconnect or a lack of harmony between the pace of the mind and the pace of the body. Breathing and focusing on your breath allows you to realign both your mind and your body so that they're working together now. You're not having that friction that you experience with one trying to be ahead of the other.
Rule number 7, find purpose in meditation.
Fun fact about me, I'd said that I lived as a monk and I meditated and that I used to teach meditation. And at the time, Accenture was taking, and they are, taking mental health very seriously. And so she reached out to me and she said, Jay, we have this big event coming up at Twickenham Rugby Stadium. Would you mind talking about social media, which is what I was doing at work, and talk about mindfulness and meditation on stage and potentially even lead a meditation? Now, at the time, I had no brand, no social media, no one knew my name. I was asked to come on the stage in between Will Greenwood, who is a Rugby World Cup winner with the England national team, and the CEO of the company in the UK. So I'm already having massive imposter syndrome because I'm going, this guy won a World Cup for the country, this person's the CEO of the company, like what am I gonna say? And these are 1,000 people who are my peers who have no respect for me and there's no authority here. And that is a beautiful position to be in because you start realizing that you're not living off of influence, so you're not living off of a position, you live off of who you are and how you hold yourself. And so I went up on stage, I was nervous till the point I went on, and I led a meditation, and the feedback I got was they'd never seen a group of 1,000 people hold silence for that long. And it was a really like reassuring, comforting feeling. Like it wasn't like, yes, we did it. It was more like, wow, this stuff works in the real world. People care. And so yes, then I got invited across the company to teach mindfulness and meditation, set up mindfulness Mondays, mindfulness meditations before meetings. I got really involved in I was so grateful to Accenture for championing a personal skill set in a big professional organization with 500,000 people.
Rule number 8, practice gratitude.
Why we are not grateful, like why we stop ourselves, what are the barriers or blocks for us from being grateful, why we should be grateful, what are the real benefits? And finally, I want to specifically talk to you about keeping a gratitude journal, a practice that I kept up for many, many years. This is almost a lesson to myself so that I can go back to doing it. But this is something I did for consecutive years, can't remember, long period of time. And it's something that I still do mentally, but I still believe that writing it down is the most amazing thing. So let's talk about this. Why is it that we struggle to be grateful? In the comment section, let me know. Why do you feel sometimes in life you struggle to be grateful? So some of the most common answers include that we believe it's difficult and a bit useless. People go, oh, that's too difficult to have to think about what I'm grateful for every day. And what's the point of it anyway? Like no one notices, no one cares. That's not true, but we'll get to that, right? That's one reason. The second reason is it requires too much effort, right? It requires us to actually sit there and figure it out and think it through. So it requires too much effort. And the third one is, and this is the one that I think we really need to connect to, is that we genuinely underestimate the power of gratitude in our daily lives. We actually underestimate it. Now, I posted a speech. I was doing a speech series on Facebook. If you don't already follow me, I'm at SHETTY'S on Facebook. Come and find me. And I posted a video series called Speechless, where I'm posting some of my favorite speeches by celebrities. And I posted this one video by Matthew McConaughey. The video's now got like 35 million views. And in that, he says this phenomenal statement, and he says that it's a scientific fact that gratitude reciprocates, right? It's a scientific fact that gratitude reciprocates. And if you really unravel that, and that's what we're going to be doing today, we really underestimate the power that gratitude can actually have in our life. Balvina says, we don't see the simple things in life to be grateful. Balvina, that's exactly what Oprah said. Oprah was saying that in the change from 1996 to like 2012 in her career, she was making more money, her business was progressing, she started up her own TV network, all of this great stuff was happening. But she felt that she was losing sight of the little things in her life. That's why she started keeping a gratitude journal. Some of the most successful people we look at today keep gratitude journals. Another reason why we struggle with gratitude is because we've surrounded ourselves with people who complain. And sometimes we are those people who complain, right? If you're not nodding, it's you, we complain. And we're surrounded by people who complain. So we complain so much that all we see is challenges and negatives. See, when you focus on problems, all you get is more problems. And when you focus on possibilities, what you create is more opportunities. And that's true because it's all a matter of focus, right? Whatever you focus on is what you amplify. And we're doing that every single day with our thoughts. We're doing that every single day with what we share with our friends. So being around complainers is something to watch out for. And that's something sometimes we can't get out of. That's why we've got to find this space to keep our own gratitude, a gratitude space, a gratitude journal. Next one, happiness dependent on external factors. When we start keeping a gratitude journal, we start becoming grateful for things we observe rather than things we expect. Right? When we expect things, that stops us from being grateful because usually people aren't living their day so that they can live up to our expectations. They're living their day so that they can live up to their expectations. And when our expectations aren't met, we feel ungrateful because we feel that someone or something is not living up to our standards. And that's why having happiness based on anything external is a recipe for disaster because we'll always be let down. Whenever we want something outside to make us feel good, we'll always feel limited and ungrateful. And now the third one is that we have this do more, have more, be more syndrome, which is great. Ambition is great. But part of that is being grateful for the fact that you can even have ambition, right? Being grateful for what's already been given to you. When you're moving forward at a great pace and you're achieving things you never thought you would, you've got to take a moment to be grateful for what you've been given because that's giving you the opportunity to build. Peace, love, energy, divine, 100%. If we do not appreciate what we presently have, we will never appreciate more. That's so true. And this quote I put out, if you're grateful for what you have, you'll be given more to be grateful for. One of the biggest challenges we have with gratitude is we postpone it. We say, when I get £1 million, I'll feel grateful. When I have all my family in one place, I'll feel grateful. When I have this, I'll feel grateful. We postpone, delay, push back, right? We make a scenario, an ideal scenario that we expect, that we want, that will make us feel grateful. But recognize this. The point we're making is that whatever we have is not enough. And we're looking for something else to feel that. Whereas, scientifically, if we feel grateful for anything we have, then we'll feel grateful. So if you're grateful for $1, you're grateful for $100, you're grateful for $1,000, you're grateful for $10,000, you're grateful for $100,000, you'll be grateful for $1 million. It doesn't work that you'll only be grateful for $1 million because when you have the $1 million, you want $1 billion, right? There's a different mindset. That gratitude mindset is the one that you want to tune into. So start tuning out of postponing gratitude and start tuning in to feeling gratitude in the moment you're in right now.
Rule number 9, seek out what you want.
Whether anyone's been purified or not and where their journey of life goes, we'll find out, right? With everyone. I really believe that everyone's on this recurring journey of life and it's all to get people to realize that service is the only goal. And we kind of have to keep having life experiences and failures and shortcomings and issues and everything going wrong to only remind you of that and that being the only satisfying thing. The way you reconcile it is only through stillness and solitude. Like if you don't spend enough time alone every day and try to hear yourself and try to hear the words of your spiritual teachers, guides, texts, then you are only going to hear the noise from society outside and that's what you'll end up following. Or if you're switching off the noise to listen to a podcast like this and all the other episodes that I've seen the guests you've had on and the types of conversations you're having on, you're all performing a service. And by the way, everyone who's listening is also serving by learning. So it's not only the giver that is serving, the receiver is also serving. I think the bigger challenge is also that we've just lacked examples of that. And so to me, it's like I would be traveling with one of our senior monk leaders. You know, this gentleman's 70 years old. I'm like, I don't know, 21 years old. And every day we'd wake up in the morning and he would bow down before me on the floor to honor the soul that's within my heart. And I would do the same back, but he would always beat me to it. And there was no one watching. There were no fanfare. There was no audience. There was no one to do it for. I wasn't Jay Shetty. Like, I was just a kid who's 21 years old. And that's how we were taught to behave with each other, with that much level of respect. Now, he would have done that with anyone in the room. So the reason I'm sharing that is like, when I experienced that level of masculine or whatever you want to call that, like, you know, when I experienced that, it gave me faith that a man could be extremely powerful by being extremely humble.
Yeah.
That a man could penetrate my heart by being really kind and caring and compassionate. But if you've never experienced that, how are you to believe that that's possible?
Yeah.
I think the first step is to seek and find. Like, I think it's hard to tell anyone the formula for how to navigate that without them finding a purpose that is bigger than themselves.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard for anyone to navigate life. Sometimes your purpose bigger than yourself becomes your family and your love for your family. And that's as far and wide as your mind wants to go. And that's beautiful. Yeah. And for some people, it becomes the world. And for some people, it becomes their town and their city. But everyone has to have something. You know, those beautiful words of Martin Luther King of, you know, if you have nothing to die for, you have nothing to live for. Like, that to me is the clear purpose of life, where we have to seek out what it is that we really care about and what we really believe in. And that can be your family. That's totally fine. Like, this doesn't have to be like I'm going to become an activist and change the world conversation. This is, I care about the quality of life my family has. But I think about quality based on the depth of their experience of life, not just what they have. And I'm going to live my life, or try and live my life in that way.
And rule number 10, the last one before some very special bonus clips, is have the right mindset.
If we don't have the right mindset, which I'm going to share today, it doesn't matter what tools you have, it doesn't matter what technology you have, it doesn't matter what analytics you have, it doesn't matter what data you have, none of that matters if you don't have the right mindset around community, around building community, creating community. Now, whenever I get asked to talk about brand building or social media today, I always have to start with this disclaimer that I'm going to share with you. And that's because when I get asked to speak about these things, people usually look at the views I've had. So we've had 3 billion views in the last 18 months. Right? Thank you so much. And for me, that's not views. For me, that's people's lives touched. That's hopefully people's lives changed, people's lives moved, people's lives transformed. And on top of that, we now have over 25 million people across social media following me on various platforms, wanting to find answers, passion, purpose. But I've got to start with this disclaimer because it's so honest, and it's really how I feel about everything I do today. And that is this. Number one, I did not start making content to build a brand. I did not start making content to build a brand. I started making content because I had a message I wanted to share that I hoped would help people. Like, that's honestly why I started. It wasn't about building a brand. It wasn't about having a page. It wasn't about having a website. It was just for the desire to want to serve people through my content. Second thing, I've never used ads or marketing, right? None of my views, none of my followers have come from ads or marketing. Nothing I've done online since I started has been ads-based. It's been totally 100% organic. So if you ask me how to use a Facebook ad, I'll tell you I don't know how to do it. Literally, because I don't know how to do Facebook ads. I literally do not understand it. I have no idea. So if you have a question about Facebook ads, don't ask me. I have no idea. And the number 3 disclaimer is I did it with 0 investment. When I started, I had no money to start with to invest in this. I taught myself how to edit. I borrowed my friend. I didn't borrow my friend's camera. I literally borrowed my friend who owns the camera. And we went out together and shot the videos. He was kind enough to do it for free for me when we first kicked off. and I didn't have any money or capital to invest in it. And I share these because I want you to recognize how much this is so possible from whatever stage you're at. Whether you already have a booming brand, whether you already have a booming content page, or whether you're just starting out like I was 2 years ago, this is possible for each and every single one of us. Whether you don't have money, you don't have any of that, all you need is time, energy, enthusiasm, and discipline, right? Discipline is huge.
You can't be logical and creative at the same time. Your brain and mind is using different faculties and different abilities to do different types of tasks. Imagine you're in meetings all day about numbers and data and analytics, and all of a sudden you're asked to do something creative, maybe write a speech or give a presentation. It can be really, really difficult to switch from one side of your brain to the other side in a matter of seconds. With very little organizing and planning, we're literally going like a pendulum, swinging from one task to another, which is requiring different parts of our brain and the abilities that we have. The way I solve this is that I start every day by first writing down my to-do list. I look at all the activities that I have to do. Now, in the examples I give in this video, I've simplified my task to make it easier, but know that I do this with a lot more detail. You want to draw a line down the middle of the page. On one side of it, write logical, and on the other side of it, write creative. You now want to plot and mark where these tasks on your to-do list fit, either in the logical category or in the creative category. The question you're asking yourself is this task largely structured, focused? Does it have certain boundaries? Is it quite a logical step-by-step process? Or is this creative? Is it more of a brainstorm? Is it somewhere where you need to feel free and expressive? After you've divided these tasks, you now want to write down the time estimate that specific task is going to take. What ends up happening is you start to plot your week by saying Mondays are going to be creative, Tuesdays are logical, Wednesdays are logical, Thursdays are creative, and Fridays are creative. Or you may also divide your day up into logical mornings and creative afternoons, or creative mornings and logical afternoons. This division, this time blocking, allows you to get really immersed into the activity, really focus, and be more productive and effective. It's one of the biggest and most common things that wears us out and weighs us down every single day. Starting from the time we wake up, negativity. Doesn't it often feel like everywhere you look, most of the headlines and social media posts, even messages from your friends and family, are negative? Why does it seem like no matter where we turn, negativity is just coming at us from every direction?
I'm not about that negativity.
When it comes to negativity, research tells us some interesting things about human behavior. Scientists from McGill University set up a study that participants were told was about observing their eye tracking patterns while they read news from a web page. Really, the scientists just wanted to see which articles the participants picked, and overwhelmingly, it was negative articles.
But why?
Another study reported in Adweek showed that on average, negative headlines outperform positive headlines by 63%. And data from Pew Research says that 2/3 of Americans say they feel worn out by the sheer amount of news that's out there. Just the quantity is tiring and negative.
It's way too much.
It's just too much.
Researchers also estimate that up to 80% of our thoughts every day are negative. So I'm going to give you 3 ways to lighten your negativity load so you can start feeling more energized and positively engaged. Scientists have concluded that our overconsumption of negativity is due, at least in part, to something called negativity bias. We're wired to detect threats, so we give more of our attention to things that are negative. So let's say you're out on a hike in a gorgeous location. There might be 99 beautiful things to take in about your surroundings. The birds, the trees, the cascading waterfall. But the second you hear a little rustle in the bushes, all of your attention will go to that one sound because your brain is worried it could be a threat.
Did you hear that?
There's also research that sheds some light on what encourages negativity in our social circles. According to neuroscientists, certain receptors for dopamine, the reward chemical, actually become unavailable when we don't give a socially desirable response to others. If your friends say, let's go to the ABC Grill for lunch, you're more likely to get that feel-good dopamine hit if you say, sounds great, even if that's not where you want to eat. Our brains want us to fit in. If you've ever participated in gossip or other negative behavior and then wondered why you did that, this helps to explain it.
Well, I feel better about myself.
The negativity odds may feel like they're stacked against us, but we really can decrease the negativity in our lives, and we do it through small, simple choices made consistently. Going along with your friends, even though you disagree, is like someone offering you a sugary candy bar. It's hard to resist and tastes great in the moment, but later you feel the weight of that choice when you're burned out, tired, potentially depressed.
I made a mistake.
That food analogy can be helpful when looking at the negativity in our lives. Like junk food, junk thoughts and junk behavior are weighing us down. If I'm giving myself a steady diet of refined sugar and processed food, if that's what I'm ingesting, I'm going to be tired and cranky.
I'm awake.
But if I eat lots of fresh produce, if I'm consuming things that are more positive, I'm going to feel energized. I'll feel more motivated, my mood will be better, and my thoughts will be clearer. And that makes it easier to make healthy decisions. It's self-perpetuating. Have you ever found it when you're tired, you eat worse? And when you eat worse, you're more tired. If our daily diet is made up of judgment and anger, we're going to feel terrible. We won't be as creative and we won't feel inspired. Studies even show we won't be as physically healthy because people who are mostly negative get sick more often. When you were talking about the stories we tell ourselves, I think that's so important because there's a great study that I talk about in the book by Amy Wrzniewski from the Yale University. And what they found is that they tried to find a career that they felt people may find not sharing a positive story around. And they found that hospital cleaners or hospital workers potentially have one of the toughest jobs. And Rangan, you're a doctor and, I'm sure you've seen people having to do that work and it's a tough job. And so they asked hospital workers how they defined their jobs. And the majority of them defined it as low skilled, defined it as, insignificant, defined it as just a way to pay the bills and that their job wasn't useful or their job wasn't important. And their role was basically described like the personnel manual. But then they asked another set of hospital workers, the same people who did the same jobs, different people who did the same jobs, and they said, how do you feel about your jobs? And these people had completely different views. They felt they were healers. They felt they were caretakers. They felt that they were able to transform the energy of the actual hospital. They felt that they were carers for the people there. And what they found is that these different people who did the same job were telling themselves a different story. And therefore they saw their role as integral to the healing of the patient. And because they saw their role as integral to the healing of the patient, they found the work that they did to be extremely meaningful. And that's crazy to think about it, that different people doing the same job could say different things about the same work. They're doing the same exact thing daily, but someone thinks it's meaningless and the other thinks it's so meaningful. And this was a term by Yale that was called job crafting. The ability to assign meaning where you see it, and all of a sudden your life becomes meaningful. So if you're sitting in a job right now that you hate, or if you've got a boss that you really don't like, or if you're in a relationship that you don't want to be in, if you can't leave for whatever reason right now because of COVID or lockdown or whatever it is, financial difficulties, if you can't leave and you really want to, one of the things I recommend you do is called job crafting from the Yale School of Management. That you start asking yourself, where can I find meaning in this? What can I learn? What can I adopt? What is this trying to teach me? And that's actually where gratitude can be applied to every place, because you start going, there is some value in this. I remember when I wanted to leave my corporate job and I wanted to live my passion and do what I do today. But I'm so grateful I was at my corporate job because I learned so much there that is so useful to me now. And we find it very easy to be grateful when things are going our way, but we find it very difficult to be grateful when things are not going our way. But what we have to learn to realize, which is a really hard lesson to realize, is that things are always going your way if you're moving in the right direction. Things are not going to always look like they're going your way, and they could still be going your way. We've all seen curses turn into gifts and gifts turn into curses. But the problem is, and this is the challenge, we have a projector up here of what we want life to look like. And then we have the reality of what life actually looks like. So there's this big discrepancy. And so sometimes you're actually going in the right direction, but because it doesn't look like your picture and your image of what it should look like, you work less, you become lazier, you become complacent, you try less harder because you're like, this doesn't look like the right direction. But you'll get to where you want in life, just not in the way you imagined it, if you keep going, if you keep pushing, if you keep learning. And that's what it means to be grateful in all areas of your life, is trying to, even in the toughest moment, even in a challenging situation, not gratitude like, oh, I'm so thankful to you for causing me the pain. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is saying to yourself, where is there meaning in this? Where is the lesson in this so I don't repeat this again? If I can be grateful in this challenging situation and I can experience gratitude at all times, then I'm always going to be coming at things from a positive space and positive energy. Here's a way that you can actually get more out of the same time. I learned this from my good friend Arianna Huffington, who speaks about habit stacking. Now, we all have habits in our life that we do every single day without even thinking about it. We're driving around town. We're cooking every single day. We may be on a walk. These are great times to immerse in those activities for sure. When you're driving, to be fully present. If you're going on a hike, to be really there within nature. And if you're cooking, to be really present with the scents, the sounds, and all of the different colors that may be there. But if you're someone who can do some of those things pretty comfortably, you can also add a stack of a habit. So for example, you may be someone who listens to an audiobook while driving. You may be someone that listens to a podcast while cooking or while you're on a hike or walking the dog. It's okay to habit stack in those scenarios to get more out of the same amount of time. I wrote about this in my book. It's called Location Has Energy, Time Has Memory. When you do something in the same place every day, at the same time every day, that space builds an energy and that time builds a memory. What does that mean? When you've done something in one place, like meditated in the same place for a considerable amount of time, that space takes on a meditative energy and frequency. It becomes easier to do that activity in that place. And similarly, when you do something at the same time every day, that time has a memory. Your body, your mind remember that, and therefore it becomes easier to do. Divide your home, even in corners. I remember when my wife and I lived in a 500 square foot apartment, and literally every corner of that room was divided into a meditation corner, a social corner, a work corner, and an eating corner. Even that differentiation allowed you to keep the energy of that space sacred and appropriate for what you want to do. The challenge today is we eat where we're meant to sleep. We sleep where we're meant to work, and we work where we're meant to eat. So we've confused the energy of our environment. That's why we're sitting in bed and can't sleep, because we do so many different activities there. Remove that energy from the bedroom, place it where it needs to be, and allow yourself to see how you use your time more effectively in that place. I'd say that when we first met, I clearly said to Radhi who I was, what I wanted to do in the world, yes, and what that meant for a relationship. And so when we met, I said, you know, I want to serve the world. I don't know what that's going to look like, but I know that I'm going to choose that above a lot of other things that maybe the people we're around are going to choose over their purpose. And I said, I don't know what my purpose is yet, but I know that that's my commitment and that's what I want to work on. And I'd say I've pretty much stayed the same in that I've always felt that way, and that's accelerated and escalated and elevated, but I'm pretty much the same. But I think the amazing thing is that when we first met, so many people would have ideas for Radhi. So they'd come to me and be like, you know, Radhi should start a restaurant, or Radhi should do this, or Radhi should do that. Because when we met, I was the ambitious one and driven one and focused one, and Radhi was the content one and satisfied one. And I realized that I loved her for being the way she was. And I wanted her to grow at her own pace, in her own time, if she wanted to. And then in the past couple of years, I've seen Radhi find herself and want to grow and put in the work and transform who she is. And that's wonderful to see too. And what I've realized in partnerships is that it's interesting. Often we want to be around people that are like us, but I always say to people, I would never want to date someone who's like me. In that I wouldn't want to find the female version of me and marry them. I want to find someone that is who they are and happy in their own skin. And Radhi's been happy with who she was then, and she's happy with who she is now. And that's what allows us to have that opportunity. And a lot of the credit to our relationship goes to her. When we were in New York, and my biggest priority in New York was setting her up.
Oh my gosh, she used to set me up on all these girl dates constantly.
Literally, I would try and find a list of girls in New York that I think she'd get along with. And then I'd DM them. And I'd be like, yeah. And I'd be like, yeah, I think you and my wife would really get along. Like, you guys should hang out. Because I just felt so bad that she'd left her family because of me. And then now we were in New York. And I would be at work all day. I was at HuffPost at the time. And so I'd be at work from a 9 to 6 job and then come back in the evening. But then we might have a networking event. So much of my pressure on top of building my purpose was, is my wife happy? And I was just always conscious of that. And I just thought, if she's not happy, none of this matters. And so I was always trying to find ways of figuring that out. It all starts in childhood. We want to be loved and accepted. That's completely normal. But because of this need for love and acceptance from just a few years of age, we begin to live according to what others want for and from us. We form ideas about who and how we should be based on what parts of us, our behavior and personality, are welcome and praised and which are not.
I like that about him.
We also learn by imitating what we see others doing. As we grow older, we shape our likes and dislikes according to the people we surround ourselves with. For example, according to data from Adweek, among 18 to 34-year-olds, 68% said that their peers' social media posts were at least somewhat likely to influence them to make a purchase.
I got one for myself, see?
Soon, these attitudes and behaviors we're imitating become indistinguishable to us from who we really are.
What have I become?
In a pair of studies, researchers reviewed data from 3 different seasons of the Premier League football play and concluded that referees systematically favored home teams by shortening close games where the home team is ahead and lengthening close games when the home team is behind. The reason? Pressure from the home crowd. So when it comes to making decisions, we change our own picture of reality to avoid the discomfort that comes when we go against what others think. And that's just strangers. Imagine the influence of our friends, our families, and co-workers, and the effect they have on us.
Yeah, but I'm your brother. We're family.
What finally does make us question our thoughts and behavior is often that we hit a wall. Maybe we wake up one day and realize we're dreading going to work. Maybe we're sitting with a group of friends and suddenly we think, what am I doing here? I don't fit in with these people. And then we end up asking even more powerful questions like, what do I want to do with my life? And who am I, really? As billionaire investor Warren Buffett once said, chains of habit are too light to be felt until they are too heavy to be broken. And maybe that's how you feel, like you're being weighed down by this version of you that you've been pretending to be or had to be because of life. Imagine your life was an empty jar. If you're filling that jar with ideas and beliefs that are not yours, you're living a life that isn't yours. The first type of filler we put in our lives that blocks us from knowing ourselves is other people's opinions. So many of us are in constant disconnect with ourselves because we're always validating or verifying others' opinions of us.
So, what do you think?
We let others' ideas and beliefs define how we feel instead of being guided by our own values. Following others' opinions blindly can quickly get us lost. Before I decided to become a monk, I was training to be an investment banker or work in business. When I stopped to look at why I was chasing this career that I wasn't really interested in, I realized I was following my community's definition of success and not my own.
This isn't me.
Step back and ask yourself, why am I doing this? Is it because it's what you truly want? Or Or is it because it's society's or someone else's opinion of what you should do or want? If you want to know yourself, and if you want to experience meaning and purpose, this is the kind of stuff you want to fill your life with. Your values should come first. When you isolate your values, you'll start to see more clearly what's important to you. You'll start to get a sense of your passion and your purpose, and you'll be able to start to see and understand what choices will bring you closer to the life of your dreams. I always say it was hard to become a monk, and it was even harder to leave, because I didn't necessarily leave knowing my natural progression. I left because I realized that wasn't my path anymore. I came to the understanding and conclusion that I wasn't meant to be a monk, that didn't fit with my purpose and my calling, and externally at least. And then with the people that I lived with, they also felt that I could serve better and do more for the world if I moved on, but there was no clear pathway. And so when I moved back in with my parents, I had my 18,000 pounds of student loan debt to pay off. I moved back in with my parents, age 25, going on 26, because I didn't have any money to my name. And my resume had monk on it. So I applied to 40 corporate companies, like the month I came back from living as a monk, or over a few months. And I was rejected by all 40 companies before an interview. Because surprise, surprise, no one wants someone with a monk on their resume, right? It's like, what's your transferable skills? Like staying silent or, being mindful? Like who needs that? And so genuinely, it was so hard because I was sending off applications. And if anyone knows corporate applications, these are real in-depth analysis, research on the company. And they're not just, flog your resume everywhere. And so all these companies are saying no to me, and I'm getting rejection letter after rejection letter. I'm worried that I can't depend on my parents because they're not well-to-do and well-off to supply for me for the rest of my life. And now it's like all the people that doubted me, it almost feels like they were real. So when I left to become a monk, people doubted me and they thought I was crazy or brainwashed or confused. And they said things like to me, you'll never get a job. You'll never make money again. No one's ever going to marry you. And so when I came back, it was almost like all of them were right. I wasn't getting a job again. So I wasn't making any money again. Like it was all true. And so my level of self-confidence and self-esteem in 2013 when I came back was not high at all. And then finally, Accenture gave me a job. So they were like literally that 41st company that I got through to the interview, thankfully impressed whoever was there at the interview, and I got that job. And I was starting a job at age 26 that was a job for 21-year-olds. So I joined their graduate program. And so I was now 5 years older than every single person that was in my cohort. According to writer Gemma Curtis, each of us has on average 28,835 days in our lives. Of that time, we spend 33 years in bed, 7 of them trying to fall asleep. 1 year and 4 months exercising, unless you're my wife, I'm guessing we'll spend something like 5 years exercising. She loves it. We spend 11 years and 4 months on non-work screen time. And 8 years and 4 months of that is spent watching TV, with the rest on social media. In fact, we spend 6 times longer watching TV and 2 times longer on social media than exercising. Yet experts say that even just 10 minutes of exercise a day would increase the overall quality of our sleep.
10 minutes?
See how it's all interconnected? We'll also spend about 3 years on vacation. That might sound like a lot, but compare that to the 13 years and 2 months we'll spend at work. Unless you're Elon Musk, who says he spent 15 years working 100 hours or more a week. He's been known to sleep under his desk. Ladies, most of you will spend about 136 days getting ready. Guys, it's about 46 days for you, unless you're me. We spend 4 years and 6 months eating. 66% of workers say they eat meals at their desks. We spend 235 days waiting in line. After all of that, it's no wonder that we spend just 1 year and 3 days of our lives socializing. But here's some good news. We spend about 115 days of our lives laughing. It's pretty shocking, right? Who knew we were spending so much time on things we probably don't really care about and so little on the things we do? Here's the thing, and I say this in my book, Think Like a Monk. No matter what you think your values are, your actions tell the real story. Sure, there are things we have to do, like go to work, but when we have free time, we dedicate that time to what we value. You may say and even believe that you value time with your partner or your kids most of all, but when you have spare time, you're more often scrolling on your phone or with your friends. There's a well-known saying by Ben Franklin, and it's worth remembering. It goes, when you take care of the minutes, the hours will take care of themselves. When we don't spend our time on what we value, mostly that's not on purpose. It's because we're simply not paying attention. Part of that is because for a lot of us, by the time we have spare time, we're wiped out and it's just hard to get motivated to change gears.
I need my sleep.
The other reason we waste time is we discount the value of our minutes. You're probably familiar with the dreaded time gap. That's what I call the mysterious black hole where our missing time goes. You know, when you're at work and you sit down to do something, but then a headline pops up on your news alerts and you click on it, and the next you look at the clock, it's 45 minutes later, and you don't know where the time went. Or when you get home and you're about to change your clothes to get some exercise, but first you just want to forward this hilarious meme to a friend, and then all of a sudden, 90 minutes have gone by and you're still sitting on your couch.
I must have lost track of time.
We lose time because we treat our minutes like dimes. A dime isn't worth much to most, right? It's just like 10 cents. If we were walking down the street and saw a dime, most of us wouldn't even stop to pick it up. According to data from Provision Living, the average American spends 324 minutes on their phone every day. If you measured that in dimes, over a single day, you'd have enough money to pay for a drop-in yoga or meditation class. Over 7 days, you'd have enough to pay for organic groceries for a week for 2 people. Over a month, you could take a long weekend at a deluxe Airbnb. But let's say you didn't spend those dimes, but instead put them in a basic savings account. By the end of the year, you'd have $11,826. But forget dimes, in actual minutes, if you spend just an hour less on your mobile phone per day, you'd have an extra 21,900 minutes per year. That's a lot of time saved, and a lot more time to do the things that support you, your health, your well-being, along with the other things and people you value. I, from a very young age, just felt there was this strong inner voice. And I believe everyone has it. This isn't me being religious or spiritual or woo-woo. This is me saying that there is a voice that we all hear in our minds, in our hearts, in our heads, wherever you want to say it is, it's there. And the challenge that happens is in our early years, you're told to tell it to be quiet. So every time that voice says, well, maybe, no, just do what they're saying, do what they're told, get on that conveyor belt, get on that assembly line, stick that barcode on your back, become a machine, go be a robot. And it's almost programmed. And so that voice that is not machine-like, that voice is the human inside of us, is being trained to be a machine. And so we start treating ourselves like machines. And machines, you just program them and then press enter and then it gives you what it wants. But we don't function that way. We're a conversation in the universe. We're not a program. And so if you're a conversation and you're an interaction, you're dynamic, that inner voice becomes so squashed that now by the time we're 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, whatever age you are, you can't hear it anymore. So you say, oh, that's some spiritual mumbo jumbo stuff because I don't hear that voice. One of my favorite ways to start is looking at what we value. And values are a very intangible word. And so there's a very easy way to figure out what you value. There's 2 things you have to look at. You look at how you spend your money, the most painful thing you can possibly do. Go through your bank statement and look at where your money is being spent. That is what you value. The other thing that we spend, just like we spend money, is how we spend our time. Those are the 2 most perfect ways to see what you currently value. Your value isn't what's in your head, isn't what's in your heart, it isn't what's in your mind. It's how you spend your money and how you spend your time. And so, just to give you an overview, and I share this in the book, that research was done on how we spend our time. And the research showed that we spend 33 years in bed, right? 33 years of our life in bed. And 7 years of that is spent trying to sleep, not even sleeping, right? We spend 1 year and 4 months exercising across our whole lives. These are, by the way. We spend more than 3 years on vacation. And we spend a bunch of days trying to get ready, and we spend a bunch of time, you know, standing in lines and queues, and so much of our time just gets spent. So the question we have to ask ourselves is, where am I currently spending my time, and where do I want to spend it? Now, studies also show that everyone has to go to work, so this isn't about what you do for work. People who had more meaningful, purposeful lives and were healthier, wealthier, and wise, invested their time in education over entertainment. And Rangan, your audience is lucky because they get education and entertainment in one place. But that's the goal, right? Like, that's the goal, that you're creating an opportunity for people to find education. The smartest, the wealthiest, the most healthiest, the wisest people in the world were reading books, watching documentaries, taking courses, listening to podcasts, learning to better themselves. And so that's the first place to start. The second place, when we look at that value audit, is I want you to write down 3 things that you're currently pursuing in life. It might be a promotion, it might be a new home, whatever it is that you are currently pursuing. And then I want you to ask this question. Is that your desire and your dream, or is it coming from something outside of you? Is it coming from a pressure of a family member? Is it coming from an expectation because your friend just bought something? Where is that desire truly coming from? And the third and final question you want to ask yourself is, do I still want to pursue that? Or do I want to change how I pursue it? Or do I not want to pursue it at all? And if you go through that 3-step questioning process, you'll get to the truth of what you truly want to pursue and stop yourselves from building a sandcastle, which the waves of time will eventually wash away. And so that's what we get lost doing. We get lost building castles that we don't even want to live in. How many of you feel like the months are just passing by? And it's crazy to believe that we're over a quarter of the way through the year. But this is what happens when we don't have really clear goals, targets, and tasks. This approach has really helped me manage my time better. I have big monthly goals, I have 4 weekly targets, and I have 1 daily task. The 1 daily task is the baby step towards the weekly target, and the weekly target added up, all 4 of them, leads to the big monthly goal. So what you're doing here in essence is breaking down something that feels quite unachievable, impossible to do, and quite challenging into small, manageable chunks. Sometimes you can be sitting there thinking, wow, I don't know how I'm gonna get that done by the end of this month. If you've ever felt that way, use this model. First, come up with how can you break that big goal down into 4 separate tasks. Once you have these 4 weekly targets, now all you need to do is divide each weekly target into a daily task. So basically, you end up working on something daily that you achieve weekly, which helps you achieve something monthly. Now you've completely deconstructed this impossible, unachievable idea into something very simple and manageable.
You talked about the fear of fear and how you had to learn to let go of your fear of fear. What does that actually mean, letting go of the fear of fear?
Yeah, so I talk about how we fear the wrong things.
What do we fear?
So most of us are fearful of how our friends are reacting, what's happening on social media, and what's the random bit of news that we heard. None of it is fact-based. That's one of the biggest issues that we have. It's worry-based. It's worry-based, and it's also imagination-based. So we become fiction writers. We've all watched too many movies. Now we start writing these beautiful movies in our head. Well, not beautiful, scary movies in our head of what may happen. So our imagination, and Seneca said it best, we suffer twice. One in reality and one in imagination, right? We suffer twice. And this is the biggest...
What actually happens to us, and then the story we continue to tell ourselves.
Totally. Now there's this incredible study in the book that I have to talk about. So they took monks and they took non-monks and they
competed against each other.
They competed against each other, literally. So they put this plate where you experience heat. And so what happens is the non-monks touch this plate. Now this plate heats up gradually, softly, and then at one point it gets really hot for 10 seconds and it cools down. And so what happened is that when the non-monks touched it, the anxiety and pressure and stress in their brain just triggered straight away, even though it wasn't that hot.
It wasn't hot.
It was heating, but it wasn't hot to do anything major to you. But the anxiety and stress in imagination or in anticipation went through the roof in the non-monks. Now, this is what's fascinating. When the monks touched it, they showed that it didn't feel anything as it rose, but as it got to its highest, they felt physical pain, but they showed no trigger of emotional pain, because they did not assign any emotional element to that pain. So my point with that is, you can look at the news right now and you can get scared straight away and get in complete freeze mode, feeling stuck, paralyzed, whatever it is, because what you're now doing is you're creating a story of what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And that story...
And you can cause sickness in yourself.
You can cause sickness
just by
inside
the story,
yourself.
not actually...
The reality.
The facts of the disease hitting you or something happening physically to you.
Totally. And that story, again, can be used positively. So your story may actually be true. But if it's going to be true, now you can prepare. And that shifts you away from being scared, because now you're preparing.
Yes.
And so the real
you can be confident because you prepared. Exactly.
And so we should be shifting our fear energy into preparation energy. Because what fear does is it keeps you locked there, right? We just feel stuck. I'll give you an example. Like when you were preparing for big games, when you used to play in the NFL, right? And you're playing American football against some of the biggest athletes in the world, it's like you can either sit there and be scared that you're going to play this game on the weekend, or you can prepare. And your confidence is in the preparation. So when people go, how do I feel confident right now? Are you preparing?
Are you putting the reps?
Are you putting the reps?
Yeah.
Are you building your immunity? Are you taking your vitamins? Are you
drinking lots of water?
Are you drinking lots of water? Are you taking the steps that are needed to prepare for whatever's coming? You will feel more confident that way. One of the reasons why I love this one is everyone from Lewis Hamilton through to David Beckham has used visualization.
Yes.
So Lewis Hamilton would visualize the racetrack before actually driving in a Formula One race. David Beckham would visualize a free kick before taking a shot at a World Cup tournament. And this visualization allows you to deal with the pressure and stress before the actual activity.
Ooh.
What it does is it allows you to fast forward. It's almost like time dilation. You're fast forwarding an experience and bringing it to the present where you're not experiencing that pressure and stress.
Right.
So that you can engage with it better. So if you're scared, for example, if you've got a really big meeting or a big pitch coming up, if you live that meeting and visualize that meeting now and visualize yourself walking in with confidence, visualize yourself not falling over on the stage,
right.
Visualize yourself starting that first word that you say with composure, with eloquence, with effectiveness, then when you actually walk into that space tomorrow, you're going to carry that energy with you. And this is one of the biggest mistakes we make, that we stress before,
right,
but we don't prepare before. And so visualizing what's about to come
reduces
the stress because it lets you deal with it now, and it lets you plant thoughts and energy into the future. And that's really what a visualization is doing.
Right.
It's letting you plant the energy of feeling composed and relaxed now into that feeling. So what I do before I'm about to go on stage, I always visualize myself walking on the stage. And I do that to make myself feel comfortable and reminding myself I'm not going to trip on stage, which we all fear as speakers. And it allows me to feel confident before I walk on. So visualizing any experience, a meeting, a lecture, an exam, whatever it may be, a test, whatever it is you're doing.
And it's like mental rehearsal.
Totally, that's all it is.
The mind doesn't know the difference between something you vividly imagine and something that's real. And most people could use that superpower, if you will, for something negative, like visualizing something they fear was going to happen. And then they're actually practicing that in advance also.
Totally, yeah, and that's what we mostly do. We mostly mentally rehearse what could go wrong.
Right.
So we mentally rehearse tripping up on going on.
Why would you
stage.
do that?
we do that because we think dwelling on our stress and pressure helps deal with it.
Right.
But it doesn't. Dwelling on anything increases it.
Yes.
So the only way to deal with it is to reprogram ourselves. You've just been speaking about this. To reprogram ourselves to deal with it how we want in the aspirational sense. Social scientist Tim Kasser studies values and goals, including two types of motivation: extrinsic, such as for money, image, or status, and intrinsic, such as for personal growth, close relationships, and making the world a better place. He and his colleagues have consistently found that people who place a high value on extrinsic versus intrinsic goals are less happy and report lower levels of satisfaction with life, along with higher levels of anxiety and depression. And external rewards can even decrease the internal motivation you already have. Researchers took a group of kids at a nursery school who had a natural love of drawing. In one group, the children were just left to draw. In another, they were told they could earn a good player award, which included a ribbon and a certificate if they drew a picture. 2 weeks later, the same kids were offered the opportunity to draw pictures. Those who were allowed to just draw showed the same high level of interest in drawing the second time around. But those who were told they could earn a reward by drawing a picture the first time around were half as likely to want to draw another picture.
What's in it for me?
The external reward actually made them less motivated to draw. When we do things out of intrinsic motivation, we're more likely to find meaning and purpose in our lives and our work. For Katrina Lake, it was her love of data, along with wanting to answer the question, what could the future of retail look like? Here are 3 ways to connect with your intrinsic motivation. First, live for who you want to become. Create a vision of who you want to be in 5 years. In that vision of yourself, list out 5 ways you're feeling about your life and your work and your relationships. Are you excited, joyful, satisfied, fulfilled, driven, confident? Be as specific as possible. Now, for the next week, every time you make a choice, ask yourself if that choice will bring you closer to or take you further away from that vision of yourself in 5 years. Do you want to play a video game or read a book? Do you want to watch a movie or have a conversation? Do you want to take a class or waste time scrolling on social media? Hey, there's nothing wrong with any of those things I said. I love them all. But we need the right ratio. We need to make sure that more of our steps are leading us towards who we want to be than away. It's simple math. Tip number 2 is discover where you can connect something you're already doing or have a natural strength or inclination for to something you're passionate about, that connection point. Your passion doesn't have to pay you, but if your current job can pay your passion, that might just be as good and a good start. Check this out. When computer science professor Louis von Ahn set out to create Duolingo, he had one motivation: to make learning free. As a kid growing up in poverty, he saw so many kids who didn't have access to quality education. So he and a partner created Duolingo, a language learning app that's now used by more than 40 million people worldwide. And while the company has become tremendously profitable, Ahn's motivation was never about making money. It was about giving back. That's major intrinsic motivation, connecting your passion with a larger purpose. One of my greatest loves and one of the things that motivates me is learning. And that's the 3rd tip. Learning to love learning, and no matter what you do in life, you cannot fail. If you look at every situation and ask yourself, what can I learn here? You're going to experience 2 things. You'll get to feel curiosity, awe, and wonder. 3 things that research shows contribute to feeling satisfaction and meaning in your life. And second, if you're always focused on learning, you will never be disappointed, because even when something doesn't go the way you'd hoped or planned, you can learn from it. As Katrina Lake says, I think a lot of people find themselves unhappy in their jobs because it's not their dream. But I think at the end of the day, if you're learning and if you're working with great people, that's going to be a rewarding experience. And that's how you too can have a rewarding, fulfilling, purposeful life and career. This is probably one of the highlights of my evening, is taking out my 5-minute journal, the Genius Jay Shetty version, and filling out the rest of the reflections for the day. I found that this is one of the most calming and centering moments of my day, because it gives me an opportunity to appreciate what I have, to remember the incredible moments that have happened throughout my day. See, we have so many highlights in our lives that we forget, simply because we don't take a moment to allow them to go inward. For me, this is like taking a mental and emotional picture of a moment that I never want to forget. And as you can see, today I had the pleasure of interviewing Jocko Willink, who fascinated me with so many insights, Guy Raz from how I built this, and then finally, just getting to spend so much quality time with my team. I purposely try to do this in a separate space, in an area that has that grounded energy. Remember, time has memory and location has energy. When you do something in the same space every day, it builds a habit, it builds an energy, it builds a space. And so for me, creating that environment that helps me be reflective and introspective and grateful is really a big part of it. Now, you may have heard about something known as decision fatigue. I first came across this concept when reading The Organized Mind by Daniel Levitin. It's the idea that we make so many decisions first thing when we wake up in the morning that we run out of energy to make the most important decisions of the day. So usually when we wake up, we're trying to figure out, what do I have for breakfast? What am I going to wear today? What do I have to do today? What task do I have to finish today? And then by the time you start the tasks, you've already run out of energy. One of my favorite ways to deal with success is continue trying to be the least successful person in the room that you're in. I think there's those statements of like, never be
the dumbest person.
Yeah, never be the smartest person in the room, etc. And I think it's the same with, if you become successful, don't just stand at the top of the mountain, don't just stand at the top of the building, go back down the stairs and keep building and keep living as that person that got you there, because you only got there because you started from the bottom. Right? No one starts at the top. And so you started at the bottom and you built it up. And it was that mindset that you started with that got you there. And so you want to keep rediscovering that mindset and new parts of it, and new parts of that mindset too, where you're always trying to challenge yourself. And so for me, one of the best ways of dealing with success is keep expanding the goalposts, right? Keep widening the goalposts, keep making them harder to reach and challenging yourself, because when you challenge yourself, and you push yourself out of your comfort zone, you're naturally humbled. Because you're naturally humbled when you're walking into spaces. I'm sure you feel this sometimes. Like, sometimes I walk into a room and I'm like, how did I even get here?
Yeah.
Right? Like,
sitting at a table, I'm like, why should I be here?
Yeah, like, and there's part of it that's imposter syndrome, and that can have its own negativity, but part of that just lets me feel like a beginner again.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that feeling, and I go, this is amazing, because learning to be grateful and stop just thinking that, oh, I earned all of this and I did it all myself and I'm self-made. You start recognizing gratitude for all the people that got you there. So for me in success, first thing is be grateful for all your teachers, mentors, guides, people that got you there. The second thing is always keep challenging yourself, because the more you're out of your comfort zone, the more naturally you stay humble. You don't stay humble by trying to be humble. You become humbled constantly by trying to do stuff that's out of your league, which constantly makes you prepare, work, deepen what you have.
Study, all that stuff.
All of that stuff that makes you go there again. And then the third thing you do with success is, I think you try and share it with others. You try and use your platforms as an opportunity to give other people a platform so that they can come up as well, because you're reminded of what a beautiful gift you have.
Because you made it this far in a video, I want to celebrate you. Most people start and don't finish. Most people never actually follow through. Most people say they want something, but they don't ever do the work to actually get it. But you are different. You are special. Believe Nation, you made it here all the way to the end, and I love you. So as a special celebration, if you put a hashtag Believe down in the comments below on this video, I will showcase you and celebrate you somewhere on the screen in a future video, because you are awesome. For 10 more amazing rules from Sadhguru, check the video right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
See, right now, if you reading scriptures, reading self-help books, all this, just pay attention to the trees around here. What are they doing?
Being.
No. They have no capability to be. They're not called beings, only you call